us. We don't know you.
Sorry.
Great. So, Lisa, you want to start us off?
Yes, I'm Lisa Bradenharder, and well, I guess I've been in this group from the founding, and I've been full-time in Williston about 5 years.
I'm Marla McQuiston and I'm from Williston. Um, I don't know. I've involved a lot with a group of that's parents of young adults with developmental disabilities looking for housing and trying to develop housing throughout Vermont, but that's kind of my main emphasis with joining this group.
Great. Thanks. Yeah. Scott, you want to go ahead?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Scott Rogers. I am working as a political consultant at the moment and had an enjoyable day in Montpelier today and saw the protests. I've been working in housing policy for about 15 years and really passionate about developing housing for families and certainly housing for everybody.
I'm Debbie Ingram. I'm let's see. I've served on the Planning Commission and on the Select Board here in Williston, and I served a couple of terms as a state senator. And I ran nonprofit that was focused on different issues of social justice, and affordable housing was one of them. So I did that for 17 years. So I've been kind of doing that in this area for a while as an advocate. And you want to introduce yourself, Caitlin?
Sure. My career has been an interesting mix of education and nonprofit communications and marketing. The education, I worked at Williston Central School for a while, and Allenbrook for a while, and CVU for a while. I've lived in my current apartment in Williston for 4.5 years. I would like to own a home one day, and we'll see if we can make that happen.
Great. All right, good. Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad to have everybody here tonight. Okay, so do we have any public comments, Melinda?
There's nobody from the public attending either online or in person.
Okay. Well, then we will move on to reviewing the minutes of our last meeting, January 6th. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at that? I'll let you review it for a minute or two. Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Move to approve. Okay, thanks. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Scott.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Opposed say no. Okie dokie. So there we are, Melinda. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And let's see, our next item of business is the Omnibus Housing Bill, Pathway to Accelerate and Transform Housing for Vermont. How do you want to do? Well, I don't know if we want to look at the bill language or if we want to just go to the summary and the presentation.
Yeah, sure. I put the bill language in there in case anybody wanted to look at it, but it's I think it's like 80 pages long.
Yeah,
so yeah, we won't do that tonight.
Yeah,
but I just thought it would be a good opportunity to just fill you in on what might be coming this legislative session and kind of what the the meat and potatoes of that bill is, so I can do that. And then, you know, also for Michaela, just to kind of really briefly review what's happened the last couple legislative sessions. So in 2024, we had Act 181, or actually before that, we had the Home Act, Act 47, which basically was a way to expand housing production and relax some of the restrictions around housing. Act 181 focused on Act 250. It establishes a new land use review board to replace the Natural Resources Board. It enacted interim exemptions to Act 250 for housing, and it established new location-based jurisdiction of Act 250, which will be kind of phased in over the next few years while the exemptions are in place. And so that includes some, let's see. Yeah, so that includes the exemptions for downtowns. These are the interim Act 250 exemptions. Unlimited units in downtowns, up to 75 units in new towns, growth center, and neighborhood development areas. Unlimited units for priority housing projects within a mile of the above designated areas. Up to 50 units in a village center and 1/4 mile around the village center, and same for transit corridors and 1/4 mile around those transit corridors. And then also commercial conversions to residential up to 29 units are exempt from Act 250. Accessory dwelling units are exempt. Hotel motel conversion to affordable housing is also exempt. I was gonna see if I could get this. Yeah, okay. And then the more permanent exemptions to come, basically Act 250 will now consider sort of location-based jurisdiction rather than jurisdiction based on the type of development. And it splits it up into 3 different tiers. Tier 1A would get full Act 250 exemption. And basically the municipalities would take over enforcement of existing Act 250 permit conditions in areas of the municipality that are suitable for dense development. So that would be our growth center, possibly residential zoning districts, but that I guess will remain to be seen. And then in tier 1B, up to 50 units would get Act 250 exemption. And again, it's in areas of the municipality suitable for dense development. And then in tier 2, that's basically the status quo as it is today, with the addition of a new road rule to reduce sprawl and fragmentation. However, in this new omnibus bill that I'm going to go over, they actually would scrap the road rule, and as well as scrapping tier 3 jurisdiction. And so, yeah, the tier 3 jurisdiction basically is meant to protect the most critical resources, and that will be determined through a rulemaking and stakeholder process. It's probably going to take a while to happen, if it happens at all. Anyway, so that's what has been done through Act 181. And then, of course, we know the goal is to get, achieve a healthy housing market. And, through basically encouraging the building of new homes through public investments and incentives and reforms in zoning, permitting, and appeals. And so currently what's in this omnibus bill is new investments, a lot of new investments in housing. 9.1 million investment to establish a new infrastructure revolving loan fund administered by the Vermont Bond Bank.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that would be pretty big. So this would be engineering could use for engineering, design, construction, and municipal water and wastewater systems. And as well as transportation investments, complete streets, transit-related improvements, improvements to existing streets. And so the requirement for this is that it would have to have some direct connection to a proposed or in progress housing development. And you would have to demonstrate some progress made towards achieving the regional housing target. And housing targets are another thing, but anyway, and then this new program called Spark, it's basically a financing tool similar to TIF, only for smaller projects on a smaller scale. So it would allow municipalities to make project-based infrastructure investments to spur development, and it would keep the increment for debts keep the tax increment for debt service for that infrastructure project. It can also be to something that's done by a developer. So in which case the increment would go back to the developer. And they would also incur the risk. So anyway, that's Spark. And then also what's being proposed is some adjustment to the TIF statutes, lifting the cap on 2 projects per county and the maximum number of TIFs that can be authorized statewide. And so, yeah, currently there's a limit of 6 new TIF districts. 2 are being utilized currently, 4 remain to be created. And then also adjusting the timeline of a district to begin on April 1st of the year it receives the EPC approval. And it's currently set at April 1st of the year when it receives municipal approval. And that's usually months before the EPC approval. So that just, sets the starting date later so that, you're not sitting there with a project that's not going forward. And your timeline isn't started before that, And then another was proposed as a $30 million investment into VHFA, 15 million for middle income homeownership development program, which supports the construction of rehabilitation of modest homes for purchase by Vermont households earning up to 150% AMI. It provides a development subsidy up to 35% of development costs for program eligible homes. And then 15 million for a rental revolving loan fund to incentivize the creation and preservation of rental housing for middle income households earning between 65% to 150% AMI. And this is like where it provides developers and builders with subordinate loan up to 35% of the development cost per rental unit for middle income houses. And then, so basically there's also investment in capacity growth for 3 different programs, VHIP, Homes for All, and technical assistance for infill housing, which that would be pretty good. And then again, some money for the Brownfields Revitalization Fund, downtown and village center tax credits get a $2 million increase, and 2 million of base funding to MHIR program. And then a whole slate of appeals reforms. Basically, the big one is a stricter standard for appealing a housing project, requiring that the appealing party must demonstrate a clear and substantial departure from the comprehensive plan or land use regulation that affects their property. So from a specific project that they're appealing, raising the threshold for a petition appeal from 20 individuals to 20% of the municipality's population. And then making the appellant liable for $50,000 of the developer's legal fees if the permit issuance is upheld by the court. And then a provision that makes causes the environmental court to hear appeals involving housing before other cases, and within sets a goal of hearing those within 60 days of when the appeal is filed. Okay. I think, yeah, and then some changes to the interim exemptions, extending the interim exemptions to make sure that they last while the tier 1 and tier, while this new system of Act 250 is being implemented. And then expanding the interim exemption areas to include all areas served by municipal wastewater system. Expanding the transit route interim exemption to include transit routes beyond Chittenden County. Yeah, and then there's some provisions regarding the land use review board. Yeah, okay, so basically, and then some more things related to these tier 1 and tier 1B, tier 1A and tier 1B areas. And then, yeah, like I said, repealing the road rule. And then basically repealing the tier 3 piece. And then some adjustments to wetland permitting, modifying the standards in designated areas, interim exemption areas, tier 1A and 1B areas, and existing industrial parks. Yeah, so amending the buffer zone from 50 to 25 feet. Yeah, and then allowing a 1-to-1 mitigation ratio. So meaning that'll, if you want to do offsite mitigation, it'll cost less money. Right now, I think it's at least 2-to-1 or maybe even 3-to-1. So anyway, that's pretty much it. They did develop this new housing in Vermont dashboard, and I think the link is actually in this PowerPoint if you want to go check it out. Yeah, it's down here. The housing development in Vermont dashboard. Feel free to check that out. It's kind of interesting. They use the property transfers data set, and I think they've done a little bit of scrubbing of that data to come out with that map. It's not totally accurate. I already see things that are not accurate in Williston, so I think stay tuned. That'll probably be tuned up as it goes along. So anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it for that.
Yeah, do you want to stop there for just a second then and see if anybody has any comments or questions?
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about all that or comments?
Helpful.
I thought it was it's very interesting. It's very being very aggressive at trying to get rid of appeals. I felt like going from 20 people to 20% of a municipality, yes, and then and making an appellant pay $50,000, if they aren't successful, that's, yeah, that seems quite aggressive to me, but I know a lot of people complained about the appeals, slowing things down though, tremendously. So.
Yeah, and know that, like, if you're still on a butter to the property, abutters can still appeal. They don't need to, there's no like numeric threshold for that. But this is just if somebody who like doesn't live anywhere near the property, if some folks in the town that don't, that aren't abutters want to appeal, they've upped the threshold for that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it seems like, yeah, I mean, really trying to do some impactful things at the state level to make it easier to build more housing. So,
Yeah, let's hope it makes a difference, especially hope that all those funding mechanisms get off the ground as well. Well, we'll see.
Well, they've spent the whole VHIP, so
yeah.
could have had something to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Infrastructure thing seems like that would be really helpful.
Right. Yeah, for sure. The spark could be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's simpler than the TIF. The TIF
Mhm.
program has had its problems and been very complicated. So,
Yeah, and especially for smaller municipalities, could be a lot easier, just to have it sort of project based.
Yeah.
That. Yeah. So other than that, I had a whole bunch of updates for you all, about just stuff that you've been involved with, that, select board has also been taking a look at. So, I thought I would just update you, on those things. Starting with, I believe, it was Lisa, did you have a question about the police barracks?
Well, it said that the town's not interested. I just wanted a couple, yeah.
Yeah, so, the town manager did express interest in partnering with an affordable housing developer to develop that site for affordable housing. He did reach out to some affordable housing developers, and basically, like, the upshot is that the state is asking for too much money. They want market value. And the property is going to be difficult, challenging to develop, because you've got an existing building that needs to come down, and then you've got to deal with the potential likely brownfield issues on the site. So it's gonna cost a bunch of money just to get the site ready to develop. And so the affordable housing developers that the manager spoke to were not interested. And it's the kind of thing that the town is not able to buy it and hold it for any period of time. And, the alternative would be the town buying it, holding it, and then selling off, subdividing and selling off pieces of it. Because it's, you could actually fit quite a bit of housing on that site. I think we figured up to like 120 units in 3 buildings or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, like for a developer like CHT, for example, their sweet spot is between 30 and 40 units. So, and that's probably the case for a lot of developers. They would only want a piece of property like that. So it would put the town in the position of basically being a developer, like buying the land and kind of holding it for, you know, for a while, which financially they weren't
Yeah.
really in a position to do. So that's the story.
Did the state give any indication of what they want to do with it? Are they just going to hold on to it
No.
until they sell it to somebody who wants to build a, I don't know, a Target or
Hotel.
something? Or, I mean, what are they going to get all the
No.
money?
No, they, as far as I can tell, they haven't given an indication of what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
So it may just sit there for a while.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, thank you. That's interesting.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then the Housing Trust Fund, the select board, took another look at that last night. They had looked, I believe it was, yeah, it was before your last meeting, they took an initial look at it. They seemed really pretty positive about it. They wanted, us to have a legal review of the policy, which we then did and got back comments from the town attorney. He didn't really have many comments, to be honest. He made he had a few questions and suggestions, which I'll go to the memo that let's see, housing, nope, okay. So like the bulleted items, were the questions or comments that the town attorney had. The first one is he wondered whether the town wants to use the funding for emergency situations, like in which the housing committee would not have the opportunity to review. It would just be like the town manager giving the funding out. And so the select board did kind of agree with the attorney on this, that they don't really want to see the fund used in that way, like just, they want the housing committee to review all of the requests. And so that's something that will need to be changed in the policy. And then another question was, in the housing retention program, does the select board want to restrict funding to those who are evicted from their home or whose home is in foreclosure? That was a comment by the attorney. You know, so his argument was it would ensure the funds are going to those who are actually at risk of losing their property home. But the select board disagreed with this, and they said, you know, you don't know what kind of situations people are in, and, you know, just, they wanted the town to have the flexibility to address those situations that, you know, you can't really anticipate that relate to housing. It was, you know, kind of an interesting discussion about the housing retention program and about, I think there was some concern that, you know, like kind of long-term impact, and there was some sentiment on the board that they didn't want to see the funds used to keep somebody housed, if only for like a couple of more months. You know, they wanted to see it result in like some positive long-term impact. So that was just it was a thought. And I guess it is something to think about. And I think just maybe the answer to that is either having something in the criteria that asks the applicant, you know, kind of what their long-term plans are or something, or how they're trying to address, you know, some of the issues, or connecting folks with service providers that can really kind of help them,
Or
you know,
financial counseling or something.
yeah, or just even, you know, CVOEO can actually like direct them to a whole host of different resources for kind of addressing some of these issues. But it's just something to be cognizant of, I guess, and we'll kind of see how that goes this year. And what kind of, what kind of applications we get. And then finally there's,
Can I'm sorry, just interject. We could also maybe, I mean, there are other places that have housing retention programs. We might, like COTS, for instance, I think has some funds for that. We could maybe have a conversation with, you know, Jonathan Farrell and ask, have they run across that? Or, but but my understanding of this kind of program is, I mean, it's usually people would only go to it if they have kind of felt a lot of it was sort of the perfect storm of many different things have happened to them that have created a situation where they can't pay, or they're back, they have back rent for a couple of months or something. And so that small infusion of cash can really help set them up for the future. I mean, I appreciate the concern, but I think that in reality, but we should verify this that's why I say we should talk to people who've already done retention programs. But I think in reality, what happens is it's just a lot of bad things. They've lost their job, they've gotten laid off, their child is diagnosed with something, they were in a car accident, and all happened at once, kind of.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and to that point, another select board member said, I can, and exactly what you said, an infusion of cash can make a big difference and kind of turn somebody's life around. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's so much more cost effective because it's a much smaller amount of money for the town, whereas if somebody gets once they get kicked out and they become unhoused, it's much more expensive for, programs to try to get them back on their feet.
Yeah. Anybody have any other thoughts about this?
I mean, it seems like it'd be good, connecting them with other resources or
Yeah, and
it'd be
I-
kind of a good practice no matter what.
right. Yeah, so if you'd like, I can maybe invite Jonathan to come and speak with you. I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
And
I think, Jonathan, I think he's very knowledgeable about all kinds of things, actually. So,
yeah, I did want to invite also Crystal Lee. She's out for a while, I think. So maybe later in spring or something. And then finally, like the last comment that the attorney had was about perpetually affordable housing. He's like, why don't you just set a limit of 30 to 40 years? Like, and I think the housing trust fund ordinance kind of uses the term of long-term affordability and does like state a definite preference for perpetual affordability. And then also the inclusionary zoning regulations require perpetual affordability. So they thought that you should keep it in there, not go to 30 or 40 years, but just keep.
He's right that after 40 years, it probably is de facto affordable, but I think it keeps it consistent with everything else and what the language other groups use as well.
Yeah. So I think that after this review, the select board is pretty on board with all this, and this is pretty much just about ready to go. So the next step would really be creating a web page, creating applications, and getting the news out. And once the fiscal year starts, I guess we'd started on the fiscal year. I mean, I'm sort of wondering, could it be started before? I mean, I guess it could, but I guess it'd be up to the town manager what he wants to do. But seems sort of a natural thing to start it on the fiscal year, but I don't know, I'll ask him.
But isn't it part of our budgeting process? I mean, I know we have a fund, but then there's also a part where we decide how much of the fund we're gonna put towards these things, right? And
Yeah.
that's a yearly thing,
Yeah, so I guess in that sense, it kind of makes sense just to stick to the
the
fiscal year.
budget, yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, so getting not like probably right away, but
Mhm.
when it gets close to the time, getting the word out.
Yeah,
And maybe that could be a news article or something, or, you know, just other outreach, I guess. So. So that is the news
feels
about the
good.
housing trust
that
fund.
feels good to hear it's moving along.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you guys put a lot of time into discussing it and looking at it and reviewing it and.
You put a lot of time.
Everything.
That's true.
Yep.
That's true.
Not
She
really.
does 10 times more work than any of us, but
No. Yeah, so. Moving on to clean heat ordinance, so all the housing trust fund and clean heat ordinance were discussed last night, you know, so that's not like totally fresh in my memory, but as far as clean heat ordinance goes, looks like the select board is really leaning towards implementing it. They discussed the waiver provision sort of at length, and at least one person was not in favor of structuring the waiver provision the way it's currently structured with the, you know, calculating over 25 years.
yes, the
different-
bureaucratic
you know,
answer, yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because well, you know, and she asked me, it was Jean, she asked me like, well, wouldn't that be kind of the same for every house? I'm like, well, not exactly the same, but it wouldn't be like that much different, really. Like, I guess it would sort of depend on the kind of house, you know, it's gonna be different for a multi-unit apartment building than it would be for a single family home for sure, but anyway, so that's sort of a question, like how to structure a waiver provision. Should it just be for certain things, you know, like for affordable housing? And I think there was some I don't know, ambivalence about waiving it for affordable homes. Because in a way, like, as some people stated, like 10 years from now, the people living in those homes will be likely paying higher prices for fuel, as you know, as those with more means are able to transition to all electric, and the people that can't afford to will be kind of stuck on those expensive fuels. So
They
there's,
also have to replace their units after 10 years, so I don't know if that the story is. That's one outcome, but we don't really know.
yeah, so anyway, that's kind of a question about that. And then they did also want to see more information about cost differential between installing a standard heating system and installing a heat pump system. And I wasn't able to give them a really clear answer because I haven't found any clear answers. I mean, I found really conflicting information, and I guess it depends on who you ask. And so I don't know, I'm gonna try to get more definitive information about that for them. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, I mean, there was just sort of it felt like there was a strong feeling, at least among a majority of the board, that they felt the town needed to move forward on both the housing front and the climate action front. So they didn't wanna, they didn't want to say no to clean heat ordinance. They kind of want to move forward with that in some form. But I think, you know, right now, I'm gonna try to get them a little bit more information on like this, what they specifically requested. And they'll meet and talk about it again in April. And then I think after that, you know, they'll likely make a decision about, you know, having staff move forward and draft an ordinance or what, but it's kind of looking like it's leaning that way.
I noted that the Energy Committee is recommending that they actually change the name of the clean heat standard, because there's been so much bad press
Yeah.
about the state clean heat standard. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah. By the way, while I'm thinking about it, while I've got it in my mind, before I forget, Sustainable Williston is putting on this workshop on thermal energy networks. I believe it's on May 7th, which is the day that this committee meets. And I, you know, guess I asked if they could change the date, and they're like, no, like we have all these speakers and lined up, and we've, you know, gone through several date changes already. And so their question, they actually are want to ask you if you want to be a co-sponsor. This committee wants to be a co-sponsor. So that's up to you whether you think it's enough, it has enough to do with housing.
What's it
And
called?
it's thermal energy networks.
Do you have a flyer or something you could send us to?
Not yet, but I'm sure they're gonna have a flyer. So one, I guess, you know, so they are asking if the housing committee wants to co-sponsor and also attend the event that night, and that would be your meeting if you chose to do that. The other option would be to change another option would be just keep your meeting night if you're not interested in the thermal energy networks. Then the other option would be to switch it to the third Wednesday of the month, switch your meeting to the third
This
Wednesday
is
of the month.
May.
Yeah, it's May. So anyway, I told them I would ask you.
Well, I have to say in my work, I used to get asked all the time if my organization would co-sponsor things with people who'd already planned everything, and all they wanted to do was tack our name onto it. And I always bristled at that. And so this is reminding me of that a little bit. If we don't have any input into who the speakers are or what the content is or anything, I don't know how we can. I wouldn't really feel comfortable co-sponsoring it. You know, whether we attended it is I think a separate question, which I'd be willing to talk about. But I wouldn't personally be very happy with co-sponsoring it.
Might be nice to know what they're,
doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff that would benefit, you know, when
Yeah.
feed into affordable housing, then
Yeah.
might be worth considering.
Um,
And could we add something into it?
right. So I will ask them if they have more information, and I will ask them if the housing committee could have any input into the contents and program. How's that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, we could always change if we had something else that we needed to deal with, to change our meeting date.
yeah, that's another option, if you're flexible. But it's February, and that's a couple months away, so you have some time to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm writing down this note. Okay. And then short-term rental ordinance. I think I had told you that the planning commission took a look at it and sent it on to the select board. But nothing's come of it, so it's just sitting out there, and I'm not sure the select board's gonna be interested, but we'll see. And then the bylaw amendments that I spoke about, I believe the last time. Those are moving forward. The select board took an initial look last night. And didn't really have any comments to speak of about any of the proposed amendments, so they agreed to warn a public hearing, and that will be likely sometime in April, is my guess. And that's all I have for updates. Oh, and then, yeah, Debbie, you had some.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, yes, so the Observer article came out, right? Um,
Oh,
yeah,
did
a
it?
couple weeks ago. Yeah, it came
Okay.
out a couple of weeks ago. It was yeah, it was in a very prominent position. It was right opposite the right in the middle of the paper, opposite the update from Angela and Aaron, our representatives. Yeah, so I'm happy to write write another one if we have a particular topic, or I'm happy to have somebody else write it. Whatever the committee wants to do. But I think when I originally pitched the idea to the Observer, I said we probably do like every other month do something. But,
Well, I like the idea of, I mean, there might be some updates. We talked about it here, like with that. But I do like the idea of aging in place, like if you're a homeowner and you want to age in place. I mean, it's not gonna be different information from what you had before, but it's like very focused on the homeowner, like how you could age in place. You could put in an ADU, you could, where your caretakers could live, or you could subdivide your lot and have your children close by, or those kinds of things.
Mhm.
So again, I don't think it's new information. I think it just ties it to aging in place.
Yeah, there's also Home Share Vermont could be mentioned maybe.
Mhm.
right.
Do we have any ADUs? That we could like interview or take pictures of, or,
Sure, yeah. I just inspected one. It's beautiful.
Oh, great.
okay, that's
Yeah,
what we want.
I feel like there's been at least a handful of ADUs this past year that have been permitted. So, if you'd like, I guess technically I could dig up the contact information for at least some of those and then reach out to them maybe and ask if they would be willing to be interviewed or have like
Yeah.
do a survey or something or what?
Yeah,
What do you
maybe.
think?
Did you get a sense that they're gonna use it? How they're gonna use the ADUs? So you've been,
No,
because my neighborhood has a number of them that are empty, so we probably don't want to have that message out.
yeah.
Oh.
Mm.
Yeah, but if there aren't a whole ton of them, you could either
Yeah.
give them to me and I could call them or email them and kind of do a little informal
Yeah, and I'm happy to work
survey.
down
Mhm.
Yeah, then you're not on the spot as a staff person,
Okay, yeah, sure.
but
Um,
yeah, I like that idea though, Lisa. It's good.
Yeah,
Good
so maybe it's not a whole lot of numbers or anything, it's just sort of storytelling.
Right, yeah.
I can send you, there was just have to look for it. Toronto had a really nice story with a nice picture.
Yeah.
Cool. Remember where I saw it.
I bet they're all in the water sewer district though. Are they?
no, actually,
Oh, good. So other people had more luck with their sewer.
well,
That's
the one I inspected was out in the ARZD.
oh yeah, okay. Well,
Yeah,
if the previous owners of my house had only like permitted it my septic properly,
Oh,
oh god, yeah.
yeah,
that's what stopped me.
Mhm.
Is the vision to have like a roundup of a bunch of different examples all at once, or would we want this to be a recurring feature?
Interesting.
Might depend on how much input you got from people or.
Yeah, how eager they are to talk. Yeah, we haven't really plotted out, like if we did 6 articles over 12 months, what would be in what they would be in them. So that's a good point, Kayla.
Mm.
I don't remember. I can look at my notes and see from that one in Shelburne. What kind of questions people ask.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is anyone subdividing their lots? Has anyone, because that could be another thing too, is
yeah.
ADUs, there could be splitting your lot up.
Yeah, there's been some small subdivision proposals as of late. They're they've been out in the ARZD. There's none that's
No,
like
yeah, so we don't, yeah. It's not in the area where you want, where the state laws, the changes in the state laws have
Right.
impacted it.
right.
Yeah, well, I guess step one, Debbie, is we should talk with these folks and we could
Yeah, I
split it
think
up
so.
and talk with these folks and see.
Yeah, because if there are like 2 or 3 of them, they're very interesting stories. We could devote
Mhm.
a separate one to each. But if there
Yeah.
aren't a lot exciting ones, then we can maybe change topics. Okay. Great. And then the other thing that you had there, Melinda, was the Democratic. It's actually the Democratic Party is having some in Williston is having some things that like educational sessions, and they wanted to do one on housing. So I tried to make sure that they got connected to this committee because there was sort of a gap there. So it seems now like Charlie's gonna moderate the panel. And it's going to be, I mean, it's, and it's a nonpartisan event. I mean, it's sponsored by them, but they want to just make it educational, informational, not partisan. And they've got, so Charlie's moderating it, and they've got like Michael Monty coming from CHT, and Maura Collins from VHFA, and Matt, and they have Matt, right, from our planner.
I don't know if they've asked him yet.
Oh, okay. And
What
then
date is this?
they're trying to get a developer. It's then was it Monday the 17th? Yeah, Monday the 17th of February.
Okay,
It'll be at the
Thank-
library at 6:30.
okay. Are they serving food?
They're gonna have refreshments. Yeah, they're yes, they are.
We have the Shelburne approach pizza.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um. I guess, what do you think of, I wonder what they would think about this committee tabling, just putting like some information, just some basic information out there.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think they'd be. I know all of them, so I'm sure. Yes, we could persuade them. I'm sure it wouldn't take much to persuade them. So yeah. I think they were going to have another meeting this evening to make some final plans, but
Okay,
and to try to figure out how to promote it, because I don't think they've really promoted it in a while. So
Great.
yeah. So
Oh,
anything?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in there. We had talked about having some kind of a workshop or something like that, like the Shelburne meeting. To try an educational kind of meeting, but I was wondering if we could partner with AARP. He talked about like, how do we approach these homeowners that have subdividable lots or potentially have subdividable lots? And your point was well taken, that nobody wants to really hear that the government, has been eyeing their lot. But AARP you know, could be sort of a neutral party to say that, to maybe send out information or whatever.
Mhm. It's an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm. Was it, I guess I conflated a couple things. The first of all, it's just having a town meeting like Shelburne did, because that one was so well attended.
Yeah.
Informational meeting, and we talked about doing that in the spring.
Mhm.
So at some point, we might want to work a little bit more on that.
Mhm.
But then I'm throwing out there, would AARP be a good partner? I haven't done anything with them, but I did see their name. They,
Yeah.
you know, co-sponsor a ton of stuff, Debbie. I don't know if they do anything.
They have like a whole lot of information on ADUs on their website.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think that would be great. Mhm.
Well, I could approach them and see what they would, you know, what they would think about partnering. This is in the context of partnering to approach homeowners that we know are in these areas that potentially have very dividable land for
Mhm.
infill.
yeah. So spring workshop on infill housing possibilities.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too. I mean, the Shelburne thing was an ADU thing, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if we haven't,
Or duplexes.
or yeah, there's,
Yeah.
oh, you're right. And actually, speaking of articles, that I guess we should have a duplex article too. So yeah, I don't know if that's 3 different meetings, a duplex, one, an ADU. And then subdividing your lot, or if it's just generally infill housing.
Um. Yeah.
All things to think about.
Yeah.
Or maybe we could do it in breakout sessions, like if there's a
Mm.
panel or something to get things going, but if you want to talk about ADUs, you could. There's a
Mm.
desk or something ready to go there.
Yeah, that could work.
Anyway, just some thoughts I had.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, for the spring. Be good.
When do you think you'd wanna do this, like in May or June or April? April's getting a little bit too close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think more towards the end of May, huh? Or maybe early
Yeah.
June. Yeah. By about June 15th, my experience is you can't have anything because everybody's gone. So, sometime
Yeah,
before June 15th.
Between spring break and June 15th is your experience, okay?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be out of town the first, well, starting in pretty early June through the middle of June.
Okay. Well, May. We should have it May then. End of May.
Thanks for taking on me.
That's
Not that you couldn't do it without me, but
We couldn't do anything without you.
No, we can't do anything without you, Melinda. That's right. Good. Okay, great. Well, yeah, we can put that on the agenda maybe for to talk a little bit
Excellent.
more about next time.
mhm. Okay.
Alrighty. So anything else? Are we at the end of our? Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Okay. We are. How exciting! And we're early and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said Crystal, yeah, has been kind of out of commission, but we'll have her at some point, and then John, and we talked about having Jonathan, and the home, and then we talked about having somebody from home share, I think too, right? Wasn't that in our
Yeah.
minutes?
Right, yeah, I wonder if, well, it's not exactly, I was wondering whether that could be somebody else to partner with on a workshop, you know, like,
Yeah,
But
excellent.
it doesn't quite fit into that whole infill thing,
No,
not really, it's a
Yeah.
different.
yeah, But if we're talking about aging and place it in an article in the paper, we should definitely
Yeah.
bring that up. But yeah, I think it's brilliant for some people.
Okay, do you have any like preference as to when to invite which guest speaker? Like next month is March, we have March and April.
But are we really seriously talking about doing something in May?
I don't know.
Seems like we might want to do planning somewhere. If we're really.
Yeah, well, Shelburne had what, their town planner, so that's getting Matt. And then a builder
And two people who had built ADUs.
and two people who had built ADUs. All right, so Debbie, if we talk to people who have built ADUs, we have two questions. First of all, is an article, and second of all, speak at a potential May event.
Sounds good. We can do that.
All right.
Can be very persuasive.
I'm sure you can.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Alrighty then. Well, if there's nothing else, everyone enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you next month, if not before.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
See you all later.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, Kayla.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Michaela.
All right. Bye, everyone.